I'm Heather from here booktubes, and today is my worst books of the year. If for some reason you are finding my channel via this video, you may not know that I DNF all the time. So in order for a book to be on my worst of the year, it had to have actually made it past the DNF process, which is what the majority of my not into books fall into. I don't tend to give out very many 1 or 2 stars because usually I DNF those books and I don't rate my DNFs, and I really don't talk about my DNFs in videos. I just mention I DNF'd. So these ones I did finish, all except one, which is a very notable exception that I will tell you about. But all of these I did finish, so they have that going for them. But I hate them. I hate them. Now, at this point, I've read like 280 something books out of the year, not including DNFs. Most of the books that I read, I think are fine or okay, or I really enjoy because, like I said, I do DNF. So these are the small percentage of books that I truly just despise. For one reason or another, and I'll try to explain to you why I was interested, why you might be interested, and whether or not the issue was skill level at all, or if I thought it was well written but just did things that I hated. So here we go. We're just gonna kind of go in chronological order. These are not ranked. Alright, the very first one is Love Unexpected by QB Tyler. I read this in January because I was hosting the Taboo Book Club with Tamika from Library of Tomes, and this was the book. Since I was the host for a live show, I felt that I was required to actually read it, so I did. That is the only reason why I did not DNF this book. I wanted to DNF so badly. So basically, this is a taboo book. It is a stepfather-stepdaughter romance, and I hated it. There were so many things with this book that I really thought could have been changed and it would have been infinitely better, but that is not what happened. She's been in love with her stepfather because she had a crush on him at school before she was introduced to him as her mother's boyfriend. And she is the spitting image of her mother, and she is turning 18 and her mom dies. And they were a very happy family, which I think really made it weird. And then she doesn't go to college or anything. No time passes. They start dating like 3 months after her mom, who was a great mom and a great wife, died. And that's just too much for me. And then this is like pure smut. It's like mostly smut, right? And the smut to me was written like a bad porno for the male's fantasy. So the stepdad's fantasy. Basically, it was a carbon copy of his wife, except 18 and a virgin, and all of the sex scenes played out like his fantasy. To me, I thought it was weird and gross and not what I was into at all. I like age gap. I like taboo. I like lots of different things. There were a million things that they could have done. The family could have not been happy. They could have had a significant jump in time, like she went away to college and then came back 4 years later before they hooked up. But no, they're literally together like 3 months after their beloved maternal figure died. So that makes no sense. And also there was some weird consent stuff where like she was going on him after he said no. She was going on him while he was sleeping, and she was like wearing very provocative swimwear on purpose to seduce him. It was so weird. It's like you're literally just a stepdad and his teen daughter who are grieving, and it was so weird. I hated it so much. Next, I have a manga, which is Living with a Sadistic Beast, Volume 1. Not only is this dubious consent, non-consent essay just not a good take. It's a stepbrother, and he's the head of the company, and she's forced to do stuff in order to keep her job. Like very bad consent. On top of all of that, and also there's like this thing with manga where culturally, I assume specifically in Japan, but I think it's more widespread than that, the women are not supposed to have a sex drive or a sexual appetite or sexual desire, so they are supposed to not be enthusiastic participants. So that can kind of explain some of the consent issues in a lot of manga, but this one was so far beyond that. It was just rape. And also the descriptive words for like the sex scenes and stuff were like plop and slurp. It was gross. It was gross on top of the consent issues, which were truly terrible. So that was by far the worst manga that I read this year. Next I have Shadows, which is The Dark in You #5 by Suzanne Wright. I really like this author. I really liked this series. It is a urban fantasy demon romance. The first 4 books follow the same couple, and then this book follows a side couple. The next book follows a different side couple. The next book follows a different side couple. It was like trauma porn. So we have a hell cat and a hell dog, and their demons literally are mortal enemies, and they won't allow them to mate or anything like that. But the people are in love with each other, but they don't think that they can ever be together because of their demons. They have all these issues. The main character has so much trauma. The love interest has so much trauma. The villain has so much trauma. And then the final showdown is where magic is thrown at the main character and she relives the worst day of her life. Page after page after page, in which she is stuck as a child in a car with a baby who dies of heat because they're magically locked in the car, even though she would be old enough to get out of a regular car because it was magically locked. There's nothing she could do, and she was trapped in a car with a baby who was dying and then dead for hours and hours and hours. And we got to relive that on top of everything else. And then the villain, you didn't even really feel like it was a bad guy because they were just a victim themselves. It was horrible. It was so terrible. I love that book, so heavy and sad and depressed and just like everything sucks. And that is not what I'm looking for in a romance novel. Like, I don't understand why. Obviously, there are some authors who specialize in hard-hitting, gut-wrenching, emotional romance stories, right? But if you are not that, and this is a book far into a series, why would you all of a sudden try and make it so much worse than everything else, so hard-hitting? And why would anybody truly want to leave a romance book with the feeling that the world is a sucky place? That's not what I read it for. It's probably not what you read it for either, but I'm just so frustrated. Next, we have Coin, which is Rural Bastards MC, Tulsa, Oklahoma, #1 by Kay Webster. When I tell you I will never, ever, ever try another book by this author, I mean it with my whole chest. There is nothing that you could say to me to convince me to pick this author back up. Even if you claimed that this was a terrible book by them, the anger that I hold towards them for writing this in the first place. I had a physical copy of this, which again, if you don't know my channel, I read almost completely exclusively digitally. I read ebooks all the time. That's what I read. This one I had a physical copy of. It was a gift. I appreciated the gesture. I did not pass this book on. Let's just leave it at that. I was like, there is no way I'm giving this to some unsuspecting person at a library sale to be traumatized by this. This is, without question, by far the worst daddy kink portrayal I have ever read. Ever had the misfortune of reading. It was so bad. All right, so first of all, again, the writing in this one, not bad at all. I actually quite enjoyed her writing. And the beginning was really difficult because you see his wife and daughter raped and killed in front of him. She was almost raped by her boyfriend, and that's when he ends up killing her boyfriend, or finding her boyfriend and taking her with him. And then she reminds him so much of his dead daughter, but he wants to bang her. Terrible daddy portrayal right there. She's like 18 and he just has all this guilt about thinking about his daughter and wanting to bang her. He does, and then she's a runaway from home, and without ever talking to her, he takes her back to her home that she ran away from, without ever finding out what caused this spoiled princess to leave her perfect home. I don't know about you, but 1 + 1 does not equal 87. Like, happy teens in healthy, safe environments who lack for nothing don't run away to a motorcycle club. So then he returns her to her home where she is being raped by her father and by other people. So you have incest, and then he sees the security tape outside her bedroom and sees the guy that raped his wife and daughter come out of her room, and instead of assuming that she could also be a victim, decides that she is in on it. And so then he takes her, mind you, she's being raped consistently for months on end. And remember, this is towards the end of the book. They've already had the relationship. He returned her to her hellhole without ever asking her why she left it, drugged her up and took her back without ever having a conversation with her. She's being raped, and he's like, oh, she's in on it. So then he takes her and tortures her and abuses her. And then she knows that when he is reminded of his daughter, he's careful with her, so she on purpose manipulates him into having the emotional response that he would have to his daughter, so he will take care of her, again still sleeping with her, on top of her actually being raped by her father. So you have that incest, and then you have the daddy who is projecting his dead daughter onto his new girlfriend. Does anybody else see how freaking terrible this is? This is like literally the worst. Every time I think that it's as bad as it can get, it just got worse. And I was just losing my mind, ready to stab somebody. So then you have all that. Then he brutally tortures and murders people in front of her. All of the other men also in the motorcycle club could drop dead, and I would not care. Like, what are you doing? You're literally garbage human beings, not worth the amount of sand that they are standing on. Just so angry. Then he doesn't apologize. He doesn't repent. He doesn't ever say anything about what all he did to her, and then they live happily ever after. When your villain is a serial rapist and you don't even view the hero as any better than him, you have failed at the one job that your romance was supposed to do. First of all, for me personally, don't have rape as a plot device. Don't do it. Honestly, I could read romance books for the rest of my life and never read rape or have a sexual assault survivor having to deal with it again. I understand that representation is important, but honestly, it's always going to be there. You don't have to put it in your book. You don't. You don't. You do not. It is okay for people to want to read romance and not have to come across rape. It shouldn't be this common to pick up a romance book and rape. Literally the worst daddy kink I've ever read. It wasn't even daddy kink. It was weird projection of your dead daughter on the bangable 18-year-old. So mad. Like I said, we'll never, ever, ever read that author again. That author could get on their hands and knees and beg me on broken glass to read their books, and I would not read them. It's never, ever, ever happening. Okay, going on to a favorite author, 3 Wishes by Kristen Ashley. It is a contemporary romance, except that the heroine's family has a genie, and they've had it since like her grandparents. He's like a member of their family. They've been saving their wishes. She is a product of a wish, and she has a wish. So her parents weren't able to conceive, and they wished for a child, and he made her perfect, but he also wanted her to be humble, so he gave her a really rough childhood. And because of that, she doesn't see that she's beautiful or worth anything. So he definitely messed up there. She falls in love with the perfect man, and then I hated all of this. And then her parents are killed, so she has to leave like immediately when he's not home. And she leaves a note, and she also tells his terrible like adopted siblings, he's not really part of their family, but he is, that her parents were killed and she has to go. And they hide it from him. They take the note, they hide it from him. All these things. She eventually gets back, finds out that she's pregnant. She goes to his house. His sister, again, not real sister, answers the door and is like, he's dead, which wasn't true. So all of these ridiculous things have to happen for them to be apart. Years pass. He's convinced that she was just a betrayer, yada, yada, yada. And then she runs into his not real mother in the park, and she's awful to her, and she sees the child, and then she goes to the door, and the dad is awful to her and like physically assaults her. And the man, her love, just like, first of all, she's thought he was dead for like the last 8 years. And he's just staying there staring at her with like this cold expression on his face. And then that he's like, I'm going to sue you for child custody because you hid my daughter from me. So there's this terrible showdown with the lawyers. He finally finds out that her parents were killed and that she tried to get back to him. And then it's just like, oh, well, then we'll get married because I love you. I've always loved you. I only stopped loving you because I thought that you betrayed me, and you did betray me. So we're hunky-dory. Let's get married. And she's just like, y'all were awful to me. I'm not ready. No. So then he's busy winning her over, yada, yada, yada. Again, okay, this is just me. This is how you get me to like a book. Do not give me a very difficult part, a very rough beginning or whatever, and then make the end super rough again, super terrible, super depressing and disheartening. Don't do that. I don't mind if you make the whole thing happy. I don't mind if there's a little bit of emotional stuff in there, but do not give me happy, terrible, happy, terrible. Happy ending. Don't do it. So it's the week before their wedding, and all of a sudden he's icing her out with other women, not answering her calls, still kind to his daughter, but completely shuts her down because he doesn't feel like he can get married to her without telling her about how, as a child who was born to drug addicts who did not feed him, how he stole for his living and was a runner for gangs, and that's how he met his adopted father. And he's convinced that because he broke the law to survive as a child, that this perfect woman that he loves so much is going to leave him. And it will not hurt so badly if he makes her fall out of love with him first. Is that not the stupidest plot line you have ever heard in your life? The stupidest? The literal most asinine, most ridiculous, most idiotic conflict that you can think of is he's going to push her away and get her to fall out of love with him so that it doesn't break his heart when she leaves him, when she finds out that he had a terrible childhood and had to steal to eat. What type of human is going to break up with the love of their life because he was traumatized and abused and not taken care of as a child, and because of that he had to steal cereal? Like, I am so angry at this plotline. Like, I understand that people don't see themselves clearly, right? And so you could be like, maybe they won't accept this about me, when obviously they will accept it about you if they're even halfway decent human beings. But this just made me so angry because it was so pointless, and he hurt her so badly, on top of all of the ridiculous, absolute lying and just garbage humans who had to tell her that he was dead and not tell him that her family died and she had to go away to try and break them up. Like, you had to be spawn of Satan in order to do that in the first place. And all these things had to perfectly line up for you not to be able to get a hold of him. Also, he moved like that day without telling her. Literally the perfect storm, and all of the storm was stupid. There was no reason for it. They could have just lived happily ever after from beginning to end. Yeah, I hated that one too. Next. Immoral Confessions, which is Voice of St. Augustine #1 by R. Holmes. This was again a taboo book club pick. Thank you, Tamika. This is the one that she wrote with Naima from Naima's Reads. And this is supposed to be a bully romance, and this was just dumb. It was dumb. He thinks that she's lying, so he like assaults her in the library and has his friends record her, and they're like blackmailing her or whatever. And she's like, I didn't do it. It wasn't me. That wasn't how the secret got out. And he's just like, yes, it was. So he's torturing her and then finds out from somebody else, oh, it wasn't her. And then doesn't even have a conversation with her about how it wasn't her. He's just like, oh, you're my girlfriend, after he's been, you know, bullying her and harassing her. And all of their conversations were so just generic. Copy and paste, really bad dialogue. And then she has an kind of abusive family and her stepmother has been giving her like diet pills and forcing her and stuff. And so she has this conversation with her parents when they come to visit. And she's like, Dad, you have to stop being a workaholic and putting everything ahead of your family. And you, my stepmother, need to stop telling me that I'm fat and giving me pills. I'm perfectly fine how I am. And they're like, oh, we're sorry. We never meant to hurt you. We'll change. I'm sorry, but if adults were already decent human beings who could be good parents, they wouldn't be really bad parents, and then one conversation lets them see the light and now they're really good parents. That's not how it works. The conversations in this were just so bad. So bad. And it was terrible. It was really bad. It was really, really bad. Overall quality on this one was low. Then I have Promises and Pomegranates, which is Monsters and Muses #1 by Savar Miller. This is a Hades and Persephone influenced mafia romance. He kills her fiance the day of the wedding, and her dad knows that. And he also used to date her mom. And then he forces her to wed him, which again, the family signs off on. Then they tell the general public that he kidnapped her. Then her family sends people to assault her. And also, they can't have a conversation. All they can do is bang to fix things. And that's the whole book. And it's done. Also, she doesn't have a good home life at all. No, she doesn't. And it's still just like, my family. And then he knows that her mother is definitely the type of person who will throw in her face that he used to date her. And instead, he never tells her that he used to date her mom and lets it be a big dramatic reveal that the mom does to cause drama and to hurt her daughter. So that was stupid. Next, I have The Psycho, which is Soldiers of Anarchy #1 by Nikki J. Summers. This was arguably, possibly the worst written book that I actually finished this year. The writing was really bad, really bad. It was very copy and paste. It was very, here's this two-dimensional bad boy figure here. He's in a gang. He kills people for vigilante justice. And also he's obsessed with you. It was just literally, it was so bad. I read it because I was just very much in the mood for this dynamic, and that was it. That was the only reason why I made it all the way through. I skimmed so much. I would skim so many pages and like it wouldn't even matter. And the whole side plot where they were like trying to kill, I think, a rapist or something was so bad. She's like standing up to him again, just copy and paste. Here's a sassy heroine who argues about everything. Insert here. It was bad, it was bad, it was bad. Next, I have Accidental Witness, which is Morelli Family #1 by Sam Mariano. The writing was good. Characters were good. I wasn't super sold on their relationship, but it was still good. It is a mafia family, and she accidentally witnesses him murdering her neighbors, and then he's kind of blackmailing her and kind of just dating her. The head of the mafia rapes her multiple times in order to find out whether she will tell the cops on him if she has nothing to lose. So he rapes her multiple times, breaks her up with her boyfriend, makes her hate him, and then puts cops in front of her to see if she will tell. And she doesn't. So she passes. She gets to live. Congratulations. But also her boyfriend is so mad that the head of the mafia is sleeping with her that he decides to rape her too. Then she consensually cheats on her boyfriend with the head of the mafia and then lives happily ever after with her little mafia boyfriend. So that was dumb. And again, don't use rape as your plot device. Don't do it. I don't like it. I will not give you a good rating. It is that simple. Next, we have the only DNF on this list. I DNF'd this book twice. I DNF'd it first, and then I was like, maybe I was just in the bad space for it, so I read it for a vlog where I retried DNFs, and I had to make it through 50% of the book for that vlog, and I did, and then I DNF'd. This is absolutely one of the most popular books on Book Talk and BookTube right now, and it is A Lady of Brooksgrave Manor, which is Tempting Monsters #1 by Catherine Moon. I really like Catherine Moon. I've read and enjoyed several of her series. This one, I cannot believe is the book that blew up for her because I truly think it's terrible. If you don't know, this is about a girl who just is sex obsessed. She can't do her job because she has to stop and have sex. And that's how she meets the first guy, who's like a Jekyll and Hyde type character. And he brings her to Brooksgrave Manor, which is where ladies of the night can entertain monsters who otherwise might not be able to get their needs met. So she gets a reverse harem with multiple men who are not men, right? They're all different supernaturals. First of all, one of the guys like bursts in her room and catches her sleeping with somebody and throws a fit. And I'm like, literally, you've never even met her. You've only met her through like a dream. And also she's a prostitute. And also, who gave you the right? Like, no, goodbye, get out of my room. But no, she just apologizes. This was the most clinical, sterile, weird smut I've ever read. I was not even turned on a little bit. I could not relate to this character in any way because literally all she was sex. She was just obsessed with sex. She couldn't do her job because sex. She couldn't resist anybody because sex. She almost dies because sex. That was it. That was it. And it was really long, and it was really boring, and it was really clinical, and I didn't care about literally a single solitary person in the story. I did not care. Dialogue, garbage. Just sex. Sex, 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 sex. And it wasn't even good. It wasn't even good. You heard me. It wasn't even good. Literally, like the very first scene, she lost me. I was just like, you're a maid, and you're going to stand outside the door and pleasure yourself? No. It was so bad. I hated it. I hated it. It didn't turn me on at all. I read like 200 pages of boring smut with like the marble golem and the vampire and the invisible man and the sphinx. It was stupid, and I wish I had my time back. And lastly, a book I read last night that left me very angry. That is The Unstilly Prince, which is Maze of Shadows #1 by Catherine Ann Kingsley. I was interested in this because it's a fantasy romance with a fae, unsteely prince. He has bat wings. He kidnaps this mortal to be his wife because he can't take power unless he's married. And he tells her if she solves his maze, he will give her her wish, which was a home. This girl is the definition of too stupid to live. She did nothing right. Nothing right. I don't know what he saw in her. She was an idiot. And she cried all the time. Listen, I'm a crier. Let the emotions out. I'm not about stuffing it down in order to appear strong. I personally think that's ridiculously unhealthy. Let it out and move on. Don't just stuff it down. So, hey, I'm all for crying. When you're overwhelmed, get that emotional release and move on without that weight on you. I'm for it. When I tell you all this idiot did was wander the maze, walk, 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 walk. Believe any and everyone who came in her path, even though she knows not to trust the fae. And then cried all the time. And then was mad at the Unsteely Prince for everything. He literally, did he kidnap her from her home? Yes. Did he kill her estranged husband who left her and got somebody else pregnant and sold the house out from under her? Yes, but you know I like a villain who will kill for you. Like that's, yes. I'm on board. She was not. I was on board. And he puts her in her maze. And then he is just like trying to woo her. And everybody's like, it will never work because nobody will ever love you. And he's just this sad, lonely little unsteely prince who is like the bringer of doom. And she's just like, you suck. Everything that has ever happened to me is your fault. You're so mean to me, even though you keep giving me food and clothing and trying to seduce me and are not letting the monsters try to kill me. But you're so mean to me, and I just wished you would die, and I want to go home, even though I literally don't have a home, and all the villagers thought I was cursed because I was a witch and a spawn of Satan, and I have nothing to go to, and also you burned down my house, but it doesn't matter because I had to be out of there in 2 weeks anyways, and I was going to be homeless, but I want to go home, and I hate you. Like a freaking 13-year-old who just is mad at their parent. Okay, all right, okay. So we just keep getting farther and further into the book, and we're not making it past this point. We're just continuing this point. All right, you almost died again. Oh, he saved you. Oh, he was upset that you were hurt, but you're right. He's the worst one. You're right. He's terrible. You're right. We hate him. It's not like we're supposed to be in love with him or anything. It's not like we actually really, really desire him. No, we hate him. Okay, all right. And then she finds out that his plan is to war and kill basically all the humans and all the Steelies. So now she can't fall in love with him because she is saving millions of people. Okay. And then, to end the book, I figured it was going to end on a cliffhanger. I did not necessarily have an issue with it. I did not think that we were going to spend the entire book with an idiot, moron person who just pushed him away the entire time. We had not one page of happy couple time. Not one page. Banter? Pretty good. Not one page of happy couple time. And it ends with her killing herself rather than marrying him, which sets us up for more angst in book 2 when she comes back to life and he's like, well, I loved you, I would have given you the world, but you would literally rather die than be with me, so now I hate you. No. I'm so mad. I'm so mad. This stupid book didn't give me them together at all. At all. At all. They didn't have sex. They didn't say I love you. She never got on board. She was literally like, I would want to be with you, and then killed herself so he couldn't take the throne. Like, do you have no faith, no trust? You keep acting like he's literally the worst person on the face of the earth, and he's not. He was a good villain, and he would have burned down the world for you, and he was loving you, and he was falling in love with you, and all of these things, and you're just like, no, I can't have other lives on my hands. I must kill myself so that you cannot come to power because you cannot be trusted. I'm just so mad. I hated it. I hated it. Why? I wasted so much time on that book. You put me through all of that for literally zero payoff. Zero. Nada. Zilch. It was the worst, and I'm mad at it and will not be continuing because I read a review of the second book that said that literally nothing happened again. So that was very disappointing. So there you have it, the worst books that I read this year, the things that made me the angriest, that left me the most unsatisfied, where I ended the book and I just wish that I could have erased that one, never read it. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you have any wildly differing opinions from me, or if you have a book that you just want to rant about, feel free to leave me an essay in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.